Today's show is brought to you by homebrewsupply.com. Homebrew Supply is your one-stop shop for brew day ingredients, recipes, equipment, and more. Take advantage of everyday low pricing and everyday flat rate shipping only at homebrewsupply.com. Go to homebrewsupply.com right now and use our promo code HHH to get 5% off your order. homebrewsupply.com. Let us help make your brew day better.
Entertaining shows with content that spreads information and sparks discourse throughout the community. This is the Pearl Media Network.
Hello and welcome to the Homebrew Happy Hour. This is the show where we supply the answers to your homebrewing questions and discuss all things related to craft beer. If you have a question you'd like us to discuss on a future episode, go to homebrewhappyhour.com and click on the submit a question link at the top of the page, or now you can call or text them in by using 325-305-6107. I am your host, Joshua Stubing. Today I am joined by the Director of Operations at cmbecker.com, right down there, Mr. James Carlson, as well as the President and Chief Keg Washer, and always dapper looking with the Hawaiian shirts, Mr. Todd Burns. Gentlemen, how are y'all doing today?
Good. I'm doing great.
Yeah, I'll be better if I get inventory done.
If you I do, man. I appreciate your time, James, because I know it's crazy there. It was funny enough, too, on Monday when I was up there, y'all were doing inventory, and Todd, I guess y'all have a whole, thing where Todd just gets in the way, and so it was like 3 o'clock or 2 o'clock. We had kind of wrapped up what we were doing, and Todd was like, hey, you want to get going? And I was like, oh, nothing else to do. He goes, no, they don't want me here.
That's his company. He can be there if he wants.
Yeah.
When Nancy used to do inventory, I walked in one time and I said, what can I do to help? I know y'all a little short-handed and blah, blah, blah. Is there anything I can do to help? She's like, yeah, absolutely. Leave.
Exactly. I love that. I love how comfortable everyone is with each other there at headquarters. I was just up there. It was great. A real good trip. We got so much done, Todd. We flew your drone. We learned how to do that. I forgot the beer that I was supposed to take home, the bottles that you made. We didn't film anything. It actually was one of the more least productive trips, if I have to be honest. But
I don't know why you came up, but it was fun.
Yeah. That's
but I do want to mention, just before I forget, Josh and I bottled for the very first time for me in 13 years and for him ever. Yep. Where we actually, made the whole 5 gallons, mixed it up, put it in a bottling bucket and transferred it into bottles and capped them and did the whole works. And I was very worried that there wasn't enough yeast left in the beer to carbonate it properly because I'd cold crashed it for so long. And after you left, we were going to test it and we forgot. The next day I tested one and it was super carbonated. So it
looked good.
Well,
it looked real good. Yeah, that photo you sent, I was super jealous because, like I said, you put aside a 6-pack for me to take, and the last 2 trips, I've totally just forgot it. So the next trip, which I won't be coming until you get back in town, you're taking your, like a graduation present, right? Is what this is, basically?
Yeah, Tori's graduating, or graduated, but before she graduated, I told her, anywhere you want to go, we'll go for a trip, because we did that for her sister, and there's obviously benefits for me as well. And so our vacation this year is going to be in Washington and Oregon. So I'm excited about that.
The Pacific Northwest is so nice. I love it. I could. That's one of the places. I say this actually about every place I travel. I could live there for sure and be happy. When I take my shirt off, some people think I look like Sasquatch, so I might fit in really good up there. And where is he supposedly? He's in Oregon, right? Where's Sasquatch? I think he's
that area. I actually almost moved there. I almost moved to Vancouver, Washington, and I ended up moving to Phoenix. But I probably would have enjoyed. I liked Phoenix. It was a fun experience, but I probably would have enjoyed living in Vancouver more. So
yeah, I don't know if you. Going to Phoenix probably wasn't hard for you to want to come back to Texas. If you went to the Pacific Northwest, you may still be there. This may not even be a thing. Keg connection may have never happened, Todd. Think about that.
Yeah, they have a pretty good beer culture there, though. I will say that.
Yeah, that's true. But think about, you would not have ever met me, and then we wouldn't have had 12 wonderfully happy years together working if you were up in the Pacific. You think about it all the time, don't you?
I do think about that a lot. Yeah.
Anyway, before we get going on the show, I do have some small talk. We have our recipes for July, our Patreon, announced. They will go out, I believe. I'm starting to solicit all the people's choices, and I believe they're shipping out on Monday the 13th. That's what I'm told right now is when they'll ship. We've had some issues with people getting their tracking number. Email me directly, or pardon me, if you have a recipe, I'm going to start emailing you directly. I'm just going to get them from the guys, the tracking numbers. We put in your emails and it's supposed to email you, but a handful of people this last month said, I didn't get a tracking number. It showed up though, but I didn't get a tracking number. And that could be frustrating with the heat and all that. So look in your inbox from me, Joshua at homebrewerhappyhour.com, and I'll have your tracking numbers for the month of July. But the recipe choices are the delicious Fat Tire Clone, which we have gone over on an episode of Recipe Recap, and the Lemon Drop Pilsner, which I don't want to put words in your mouth, Mr. Carlson, but that's one of your favorite recipes, isn't it?
It is. Yes, absolutely.
And that's the one we took to HomebrewCon that was really popular. But also, unfortunately, isn't that the one that we had to dump on the last day because of infection?
Yep. We had one keg that was, it's sitting at FedEx, hot FedEx. It was so weird. We got there and it wasn't any different than Texas.
It was weird.
Heat-wise.
Yeah, it was super weird.
And so it's set for 2 days in a hot 100-degree plus warehouse. So it got a little bit of diacetyl.
I was extremely happy though that the first keg didn't, and because that one, remember how quick your first keg of it went?
Yeah, it was easy to drink. I think that's the reason why people like Kolsch. As long as it's easy to drink and it's not super hoppy, generally most people will like it.
Are we even sure that that's really the one that went bad? Because if you remember the last day when we hooked the kegs up, we crossed the wires, so we.
No, it is. Yeah. We did realize it's what it was because the person helping set up the beverages, like when you work a trade show like HomebrewCon, you hardly actually ever touch your beer. You have to check it in when you get there if you didn't ship it directly there to them to check in, and they have their beverage team that disperses it to your booth every day. And the lady who was helping, very nice, she did wonderful, except she kept connecting them to the wrong taps.
Oh yeah, I forgot they were doing that.
Yeah.
Like, no, we'll take care of that.
Yeah, we did. Yeah, so yes, you're right, Todd. The last day we thought it was Joe's Mosaic pills that was the one that got bad, but it was the lemon drop because I think it was actually James. Later, you poured a beer and you thought it was lemon drop. You go, that's not lemon drop, guys.
No, it was not the A.
Yeah, it was
like, no, that's not the Pilsner.
Yeah, you were like, that is not a Pilsner. And
I have to tell you, when I knew this was what we were going to be sending out, I came very close to brewing it again with the excuse that we were sending it out, so we should brew it again and do we really should probably do a taste test on it at some point.
Why don't you? We haven't, on the lemon.
I'd love to. If we had some Pilsner malt, I would love to do.
Maybe you should do that tomorrow.
Well, I could do it with 2-row.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that one uses Pilsner as well.
That's
right, yeah. God.
Well. It is right now, obviously everyone listening is living in the same timeline we are living in. And because of this resurgence of COVID cases and this and that, supply chains are getting affected again. Not that they ever weren't affected, but it seems like we're almost back to the beginning of this mess where it was like, suppliers are messaging us, telling us this isn't going to be in stock for another week, or, packaging this and that. And it is terribly frustrating. We do appreciate everyone's patience with everything if your order has been affected by it, but we are hoping that you are home and happy and healthy and safe, and we will try to get your Pilsner malt out to you. Is it Pilsner malt or Pilsen? I always don't. Are those?
That's the same thing.
It is. Okay.
Yeah.
I thought it was. That's my dumb question for the day. But people go back and forth with what they call it, and I didn't know.
And we actually got all the orders out yesterday, and then when I got ready to get a recipe to brew, that's when we ran out. So I think it's going to be in Monday or two. We shouldn't have much of a delay.
No, it's in fact, most orders come in tomorrow, but I know it should be here at least by Monday.
And I don't just butter you up because you're here, but ever since you took over all the ordering, James, like being in charge of what to order and when and all that, you obviously have decades of experience with ordering.
Yeah, but just throw that out the window for the last 2 months, because all my fancy calculations and day supplies just not been
dude,
accurate.
I don't know, dude. You've been pretty damn close than what any other ordering process we've ever had. I was telling Todd when I was like, I've been really impressed that it's funny because you're always so hot. You're like, my calculations are off. Your calculations are off in that, we didn't have quite enough. Let me tell you a math story yesterday, Mr. Carlson. I'm in the car with Todd talking about COVID cases or something, and it was 1,000 times 51 or 52. And I said, yeah, Todd goes, 52,000. And I go, 52,000 is 5,200. And then I know. And then immediately as it came out of my mouth, I stopped. I said, no. Please don't, Todd. And he seized on it like a shark,
like a rocket.
Like a shark.
That story was all true to the point when he realized it right away. He didn't realize it right away because he argued it for a little bit.
I know. Whatever. That's fake news. That's fake news, my friend. Fake news. But yeah, so the Fat Tire clone in the Lemon Drop Pilsner. If you're a Patreon member at patreon.com/homebrew happy hour, you're going to get a message later today asking you for your choice, what kind you want, how you want the grains. And if you join either of our top two, that's how you qualify for the monthly recipe. And I believe the Imperial strains that are going out, I believe House is what's going out for the Fat Tire. And I don't remember if it's Urkel or Harvest for the Lemon Drop. Do you remember, James?
Harvest.
It's Harvest. Okay.
Harvest, yep.
So both incredible strains. And again, can't thank Imperial enough for everything they do for our this show and for members of our Patreon. They have been Imperial, like I said, obviously their product is good and we swear by it, and we have been since we've been using it. But the people there are
they're great.
They're
Owen's
incredible.
Awesome.
Owen's awesome. Casey's awesome. Jessica, I think, is who's filling in for Casey as she's on maternity leave. I think it's Jessica, right? I'm sorry, Jessica, if you're listening, or Nicole, or whatever your name might be. I might have to edit that out.
Maybe you should just stop and move on.
Dig in the hole. What I'm saying is everyone at Imperial is awesome, and we thank you so much. Other small talk that I'm trying to think of. Our presentation is available for free. The one we did at HBC for HomebrewCon, in-depth draft beer systems and building a keezer. You can get it all, again, for free, ad-free too. I didn't even monetize the video at youtube.com/homebrew happy hour. We are getting such good feedback, guys, about that presentation. I know my inbox is full. I've been forwarding some of it to y'all. I've been super happy. People, I think, are realizing we put a lot of work into that. And I'm proud of it. I think it turned out real well. The information's solid, and a lot of comments on the video and a lot of feedback on the Facebook posts and other social media. Reddit, hey, this post, that video is getting me warmed up to Reddit. They are finally accepting me in their tribe. This is a big moment for me. But you could go, to youtube.com/homebrew happy hour. Go check that out. And Todd, I forgot, did you have one more thing to talk about in small talk before I got to the questions?
Well, I was just going to mention that I'm brewing tomorrow a new recipe, and one of the styles that I really like a lot is a lighter rye beer. And there's one here locally, Local Buzz. Locally, I think it's called Local Buzz, right?
It is,
and it's so it's got honey in it, and I have never been a fan of honey in beer. But I love this beer. It's got rye, and I think the rye it kind of works really well with the honey, and because the rye's got a pretty strong taste to it. So it's not a clone of that beer. We created a new recipe that has all these elements in it, and it's a lighter summer type beer, which I'm kind of in the mood for. So I'm excited about brewing that tomorrow, and we'll all taste it, see how it is, and it may make it into the lineup. So
Local Buzz from Four Corners, right, is the brewery.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. It is a solid recipe. I've had it for a while. The one thing that I love the most, and they just got rid of it now, are the 360 cans that they used to come in, which I think your batch, Todd, is one of the last ones where you pop it.
So people have been saying that for like 6 months, though. Every time I go, it's still got those cans.
Really? They're the ones who made go to their Facebook, Four Corners.
Oh, really?
I wonder why what was the reason for switching?
Supply. So they had supply. They said supply. So people in the comments. So Four Corners, I forget who bought them out, but they got bought out. So obviously, when you get bought out, people are gonna give you crap. It's easy to crap on you. Oh, you're solo. And so a lot of the comments were, oh, they changed the cans to save money because that's what Big Beer does. And the people, and so the person managing the social media account was like, well, it's a supply issue. Our supplier raised the price on these so much, we just can't do it without raising the price. Who's gonna pay $13 for a 4-pack, right, or whatever? So I think they just had to make the choice. But the 360 cans is what they were calling them, my favorite ever. Like, I almost could get over a bad beer if it has one of those tops. It's just that.
Oh, I agree with you. I love those tops.
Yeah, they make the beer taste better.
They really do.
So they got bought out by Constellation.
Okay, well, that's Big Beer.
Isn't that the one that bought out the super expensive purchase?
Ballast Point?
Ballast Point.
I believe so. But then
I think they've sold it now.
Exactly. Yeah. See, that's the dream. I just want like my mortgage. When I first did my mortgage, it got bought out immediately by some other bank, and then they sold it. I don't know if we were considered a toxic loan or not in 2009, but it just keeps getting bought out. But for my business, Todd, wouldn't that be nice if someone bought you out of Cat Connection, and then you don't care what they do after that? They just sell it there. As long as I'm along for the ride, I'll be okay.
Well, I mean, they bought Ballast Point for, it was the first brewery to ever sell for $1 billion, right?
That's crazy.
Are you sure? I'm not gonna bet you $5. That seems incredibly high.
Wow, that's high.
We could bet $5. I bet you're right.
We've not. Oh my gosh, James is gonna look it up. I'm gonna get to the first question because I paid. I'm like $15 in the hole with you. I gave you 5 of it when I was just up there, and I think we've decided that the Homebrew Con bet is a draw because I'm not budging and you're not budging, so I might only be $5 in the hole with you.
Well, I mean, I've agreed to not collect my money from you, but I definitely won.
Oh my gosh. Okay, and that brings us to our first question on today's show. Our buddy Bruce, who texted us at our hotline 325-305-6107. Bruce wrote, in a perfect environment, would you have specific equipment for specific styles of beer you're brewing? I've only made lagers and wasn't sure if I need to use different fermenters if I make other styles due to the different yeast. Cheers. Now, I did message him for a little bit of elaboration because it was through text message and people like to keep them short. What Bruce was saying is that he uses the same strain of yeast for every batch he's brewed, and he's been brewing for about 18 months. If he uses even an ale yeast, does it need its own bucket, or is it okay as long as he's not using something like Brettanomyces or however you say that sour strain? As long as you're not using one of those, is it okay to continue using the same fermenting equipment between standard lagers and standard ales? So, James, I'll throw it to you first.
Sure. Yeah, there's no reason. The only difference would be the temperature that you ferment in. The only thing that I would stay away from if you're doing anything with lacto in it or sours, I would keep that in a separate vessel for sure, because it's sure hard to get that out once it's established a presence in what you're fermenting in.
Well, and I was going to say, Todd, you have been using, when he asked that question, I had to stop and think. I know we don't brew farmhouse, and I know we don't brew sours, and we don't do anything super left of normal. I'm doing air quotes for audio only listeners, but you've never had to think like, even throughout the huge catalog of different lagers and ales you've ever brewed, have you ever had to do anything specific with your conical when going from one style or to another? Or is it the same standard cleaning and sanitizing and it's effective across the board?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, it would be the same. The only thing you would use different with a lager is obviously you just need to have some way to lager it to get it cold. But as far as different equipment for different styles, I've never worried about it at all. If you sanitize stuff, it's going to kill it. So, particularly, that's one thing. One point I would bring up. I know that what's the sanitizer from National Chemical?
The iodophor.
Yeah, what is it called? It's the iodophor. I can't remember the
BTF iodophor.
BTF. Jonathan from there did mention that BTF does kill yeast, and some of the other sanitizers can't always kill yeast. I don't really understand why, but he did make a big deal out of that. So you may have to it might be helpful to use a sanitizer like that if you are switching from, from maybe something like a sour or something weird like that, because to try to kill everything, maybe use a couple of sanitizers. But for the most part, I've never done anything different between the two styles,
right?
Between the two methods,
right? And I haven't thought to either, and it makes me think though. Like James, he specifically mentioned fermenters, but the first sentence he talked about specific equipment. Would you, let's say, we live in an alternate reality, and James Carlson is all into sours now, and he's getting into sour. Would you not just have a separate fermenter? Would you have separate equipment completely for your sour setup, or because of the boiling and all that goes on in the kettle?
Yeah, the mashing boiling process, that's not going to affect. It's when the sour is started to ferment, and a lot of times people, when they're doing sours, most of the major yeast companies offer a lactose strain for sours.
Yeah,
it's
before you get to that point, the wort's no different, right? So
yeah, that's right. It's not any different than brewing any other beer.
That's what I thought. I just didn't know. And people who do kettle sours, I mean, that's still a fermentation process. I mean, it's not the phrase kettle sour doesn't imply that it has to do during the boil or the mash process. It is still a fermentation process. So really, it would just be separate fermentation equipment, which, again, I know people, I think we've talked about it on the show. I know I've talked about it with y'all not on the show. We've had customers and listeners write in who had a culture, like they had a scratch in their bucket, right? And a culture gets there and they just can't get rid of it. So they repurpose that as a sour bucket, and then boom, it's not always the most consistent results because they don't necessarily know what culture is trying to hang it out in there, but they're using similar type of yeast that would produce the sour beer that they're going for and get those pellicles, the nastiness that we see on Instagram.
Yeah, the white rubber balls, white rubber balloons.
And it's so funny, and I'm such a hypocrite because now that I'm all into kombucha, and I've posted photos of it on my Instagram, listeners will be like, that almost looks like pellicle porn. Is that what you're doing, Josh? Is that oh no, it's different because I like this, and that's what makes it different. But I'm you know what? With how crazy 2020's been, I'm gonna go buy a sour. That's what I'm gonna do. It's like that episode.
Well, we have a fermenter. Todd's got a stainless steel fermenter. That, if you remember, Todd, we brewed 2 different batches in it, and they both ended up sour.
Yeah, and I have sours in my fridge. Next time you're there, I'm going to pour you a Jester King.
That's what we're. Yeah, you also had.
You can have mine.
Yeah, well, you also have that Belgian lambic. You have a couple bottles of some lambic from Belgium you brought over. That's what we'll do. It is that crazy of a year. That's what we're going to have to do. We're going to have to, and then watch me end up liking it. How crazy would that be?
I like Belgium lambic.
Yeah, I was going to say. I like that Belgian, the Canyon. Is that how
I still have some of that, James.
Awesome.
We got to drink that next time you're there.
Yes, we do.
Remember, we went to the bar in Germany and we ordered a bottle of it because these other people were, and we got the bill and it was $100.
What?
Yeah, they're Russians, weren't they?
Yeah, they were Russians.
Yeah.
And they're like, "You'll have to." We were like, "Oh, we've been there. We've had just enough beer where we were like, oh, we've been there. We're very sophisticated. We're going to order a bottle as well." Of course, cheap ass Todd didn't know it was $100 for a bottle of it.
Well, I mean, you were careful to not show Liz the receipt,
Oh yeah.
He looked at me and he goes, "James, you're not gonna believe how much."
The bill, our bar bill was like $200 and something, and we just drank beer.
Oh, that reminds me, when we were in Rhode Island, I was watching you when you grabbed the bill from that one night at
the restaurant,
Hemingway's. At Hemingway's, you grabbed the bill, and because James and I went there a couple days before when we unloaded, and we just had oysters and mac and shrimp, and it was like a lot of bread. And then the bill comes to Todd that night, and I'm just staring at him, waiting to laugh because he paid the bill for like 9 of us.
But I knew. I mean, I wasn't shocked at all that time. I knew how much the bill was going to be because I looked at the menu.
Yeah, it was my car payment. But anyway,
well, it's probably 2 car payments.
Yeah, you don't have that nice of a car. None of us do. Well, James does, but it's.
That's an illusion, man. That's what happens when you buy a clean one 5 years old.
Yeah, no, I certainly don't have a car that would have a car payment that high.
Yeah. Oh, but we appreciate you. But back to Bruce's question. So, assuming, like, from the information I got from him elaborating, he's not doing weird styles and sours and all that, man. If you have the budget and you want to upgrade to have more fermentation equipment so that you can brew more and have a bigger, a constant cycle of brewing going, that is a great reason to have more equipment. But it's not necessary for your brewing experience to have to, oh, this is my lager bucket and that's my, and if you already have buckets and you want to upgrade, get a conical. Like right now, that'd be the ultimate fermentation upgrade in my opinion. But anyways,
and I'm actually thinking if I end up doing that, the beer next week that we talked about, we're talking about one of us doing a fest, the other one doing a Marzen, since Oktoberfest is serves a fest now instead of a Marzen in Germany, that we were going to brew both of those and talk about them. If I end up, I've been thinking about it. If I end up doing that next week, it means I shouldn't use my conical this week. So it'll be weird to brew a batch of beer this week and put it in buckets because I have to save my conical,
You thought it was so weird when we,
if you,
oh, go ahead,
if you had more space, you could sure use another conical in there in that setup if you had more space.
Yeah,
you're a good influence and friend, James. I like that.
You're like Mark Borski when I want to buy another gun or something. He's always like, "Of course you need that."
Well, of course you do.
Todd thought it was so funny and foreign. Not only when we were doing the bottling process, but when that beer we did, we put into buckets, and it was just like this, oh yeah, because y'all don't do it that frequently. I mean, before that, when's the last time you used buckets, Todd?
No, I do, because I brew my fermenter's full a lot. If I kind of save the fermenter for lagers. So if I'm doing ales, I put them in buckets because they're done fairly quickly, and I want to cold crash the lager forever. I mean, lager it. I want to lager it forever. So if I know I'm going to do an ale and I'm going to do a lager, I'll save the fermenter for the lager and put the ale in buckets.
Well, now with your fancy keezer, don't you have the space? You could well, no, because you'd have to change the temperature. So never mind. James is right. You need a new conical or another conical.
I do.
So thank you, Bruce, so much for submitting your question. This is a great time to interject and remind you, if you submit a question to the show that we take on air during any future episode, you're going to get a $25 gift card to kegconnection.com. So Bruce, I had his email from the text message. Check your inbox. Your gift card is there. Moving on to question number 2 came from our friend Jonathan L., who wrote to the the hate mail hotline, tburns@kegconnection.com. No, he wrote, he was getting some help from Todd, and it ended up being a great question. So Jonathan wrote in, he said, I was wondering if you had suggestions for a mold preventative or eliminator. I have a bottle of QA, but I'm not sure I can just liberally spray that and leave it to dry on any surface. Like most people, I brew and ferment in my garage as well as house the keezer. That this time of year, mold is growing. What are your thoughts about a vinegar spray? Any tips? Thanks, Jonathan. Now, we've been fortunate recently to have a lot of conversations with people who know what they're talking about, and Todd has absorbed that information. So I have no input on this, but Todd, you've been on the phone with so many chemical companies and getting this info that it is appropriate that they ask you this question and that you're taking it on the show, because I can't help. So Todd, what do you think about Jonathan's issue?
Well, it's multi-part. So first and foremost, we'll talk about the QA, because I was not absolutely sure about this. So I called the manufacturer before the show, before I answered his question, and talked to them. And, it's funny because this is Jonathan, and the person we normally talk to is Jonathan, but that Jonathan is out right now. So I spoke to another person there. And what they said was that, first of all, I sent them the sheet. They have on their website, they have a sheet, and you can go, see the overall instructions. They call them the label sheet, but it has a lot more. It's like 6 pages or 7 pages. I think on page 6, it basically said that you could put it in a spray bottle and spray mold with QA, and it took about 5 minutes for it to kill the mold. So the answer is yes. However, they don't say that it's recommended for porous surfaces. It's for non-porous surfaces. So I looked up, my immediate thought was I would use bleach. I've always used bleach for mold. I mean, bleach kicks mold bad, right? It's a great thing to get to kill mold. So I started doing research because he mentioned vinegar, and I found out that bleach is also not considered to be effective in porous surfaces, only on non-porous surfaces, but vinegar is. So if you put 5% vinegar, if you go to the store and you purchase vinegar, it's typically going to be 5%. That's what people use for canning. I used some this weekend when I was canning some salsa, and that's going to be 5% vinegar. You want to use it full strength in a bottle. You want to spray. You want to leave it on for 10 minutes. After 10 minutes, you can wipe it off or wash it off, but it is actually considered to be effective on porous and non-porous surfaces. So I would say that's probably the best thing to kill the mold with. And what I will use next time that I'm trying to kill mold instead of bleach, because it's also not anywhere near as corrosive as bleach is. Bleach is very, very corrosive. So I learned something in the research. I thought it was interesting, and it sounds like either QA or vinegar are our friend when it comes to mold. One other thing I would mention with QA, it's 4 ounces and 5 gallons to kill mold. So you get a lot of solution out of 4 ounces. So, an ounce, obviously, in a little less than a little more than a gallon and a quarter would also be a gallon and a quarter to an ounce would be the proper mixture. So if you put an ounce in a gallon, it's also going to be very effective and a great way. You get a lot out of it because, man, there's, what is that, 32 ounces? So, you're going to get, just even in that solution where you're specifically trying to kill mold, you're still going to get 32 gallons of mold killing. And if you're just using it for sanitizing, it's actually a much smaller concentration than that. So that's what I learned when I did the research.
And you are talking specifically about killing mold that already exists, or this is also can be used as a preventative of just like wiping down with that mixture is going to kill anything from being able to grow there for however long.
Well, they recommend, vinegar is acidic, so it depends on what you're spraying it on, but it is going to have some corrosive. You could have some issues by leaving an acidic solution, whether it's QA or vinegar on something. So what they're recommending is, as you're starting to get mold, you kill the mold with the vinegar, and then you wash or wipe it off after 10 or 15 minutes or whatever time frame. I don't know that I've ever tried to prevent mold with something. I guess you could, but I've never tried that.
And I guess what I was getting, because remember we had a question during the presentation when we did the Q&A part at the end where they were asking about, making sure it's airtight, right? To prevent, like your keezer had to be airtight because otherwise mold would begin to form and you'd also lose efficiency. But the best preventative measures, I guess I'm getting at, is by keeping things dry, by keeping your brewing environment dry, not giving it a place to grow, because doesn't it need dampness?
Well, and you definitely want to be very careful when you say sealed. You don't want to seal. If you're not using your kegerator, you definitely want to keep that door open. You want to get it good and dried out. Where I've seen the absolute worst mold outbreak ever is when somebody has a kegerator, a keezer, a fridge that they're brewing in, and they've spilled some beer and stuff in it, as you will tend to do. And then they finish their keg and go, I'm done with this keg. I'm going to unplug it. And they leave it. And then the next time they open it up, it's got the whole entire inside is black mold.
Y'all aren't naming names. I'll do it. That was Zach. I remember. y'all don't y'all remember his kegerator?
I remember a certain doctor that we dealt with, James, that had that issue too. So
yeah, I remember that. I was like, let's just throw this away.
We just had to throw all the lines away and start over.
Yeah, that you're right though. People, you're right to correct me. I meant assuming you're consistently using it. You don't want. There's a number of reasons why you need to make sure it's sealed. In regards to mainly efficiency too, though, right? Like because. Temperature change. If you keep opening, like we've seen it on your keezer, opening and closing, and then if we didn't have those nice CM Becker V10 faucets, it would have been a much worse experience pouring because we couldn't adjust on the fly. We would be getting a lot of foam. But
yeah, and you get cold. Mold does not like cold. So as soon as you start to warm up an environment and that environment's damp, especially this time of year, you're going to get mold. In Texas, you're going to get mold.
And I was going to add on to Jonathan's question just because I have a microphone. I've never thought in Texas, and I'm in my garage, right? We converted it, but like at my dad's place, we brew outside. But I've never thought to even have a keezer like in his garage or outside, just because I assumed the compressor wouldn't even make it through a summer. Is that in a Texas, the average Central Texas garage, is it okay to keep a keezer in there for us for the temperatures we experience in the summer? Is it just going to be a little bit more work? Like, is it going to work your compressor harder?
Yeah, it will. My parents had they had a fridge in their garage the whole time, always when I was growing up, and a freezer. They had a fridge and a freezer. The flip side to that is, and I don't know the exact science of how much it is, but when you put a fridge in your house, keep in mind that you're actually warming your house up from the fridge, because when it makes cold, it's expelling hot into your house. So that's that would be the flip side of that. But yeah, if you've got a sealed garage and you've got your, fridge, freezer in there and you're running it, it is going to get hot. Yeah.
Yeah. I thought so. But anyways, thank you, Jonathan, for submitting your question. And again, any hate mail y'all have, Todd's email is always in the show notes. You can always send it to him. Even criticism about me, don't go straight to the reviews. Send them to Todd first. Let him proofread it. And then he'll agree with everything you're saying anyway. And then you can publish it. But anyway, all right, final question for today's show came from our friend Mark P., who used the submission form at homebrewhappyhour.com. Mark wrote, "Fellas, I love the show. Your video about building a keezer is my new resource for the project I'll be doing soon. I wanted to ask about the tubing length. For my project, I will not be using flow control faucets from the beginning." Shame on you, Mark. My plan is to upgrade to them over time, but I already have 4 faucets that were given to me, and I'll be using those to save money. Inside of the chest freezer, what length of beer tubing should I use per tap? When I eventually upgrade to flow control faucets, will that length need to change, or can I keep it the same? Yeah, Mark, I'm going to throw it to you first, James, but like the gist of it is flow control helps you to not have a rat's nest of tubing inside your keezer, and which is the one thing I love the most. I told my dad, when we build out a keezer, we're starting with those V10s from day one, just for that sake of on the fly control, like I was talking about just a second ago with opening and closing and temperature changes, but mainly too the cleanliness of the organization in Todd's keezer was the most impressive. But James, what are your thoughts on Mark's question?
Well, I would definitely, if you're going to go to flow control, you're going to need to go to a bigger ID hose. The whole purpose of direct draw non-flow control is resistance. So Todd's better at this than me, but I'm guessing 4 to 5 foot of 3/16 hose will get you 2.5 volumes at 39 degrees, 12 PSI. But, if you go to a flow control faucet, it won't work if you're still running all that resistance to the head. So you're going to have, hose is not that expensive. So it's just plan on going to a bigger size ID hose. And I'm assuming he saw the presentation from HomebrewCon, and you could see how much a big difference that makes when you have nicer, neater, shorter hose in your keezer. It sure makes a difference.
And Todd, for you, like you said in the presentation, you just mentioned in it how, because we're using flow control, we can keep them short, and your lines are almost just the perfect length it takes from the location of the keg to the tap that correlates to that keg. With non-flow control, you would use the same standard, like James was saying, 4-ish, 5-ish feet would be plenty.
If you do the math on it, I know James is taking the class. I think it comes out to 4.5 feet at 38. If I remember, that's off the top of my head. Most companies that supply beer line have just rounded that up to 5 feet. That's kind of the standard that everybody's used forever, and that's what most kegerators would come with, is 5 feet. I think that in a keezer, you're in a unique situation, because every time you have to open that door, you're opening a huge door. You're letting a lot out. You've also got the cycling that you're doing, because you don't want to set your refresh time on your control unit for the compressor to like a minute. I'm sorry, not a minute, to like 1 degree. You want to go like 3 degrees so that you're not turning your compressor on and off constantly. So what I would probably do if it was me personally is I would put about 7 feet on there, and understanding that my beer is going to pour a little bit slower, but that I'm compensating some for the fact that I'm going to have some temperature variation in a keezer. I mean, it's just the way it is, and I would probably put like 7 feet on there, which is horrible because you have line everywhere. But you can, if he's going to eventually go to flow control, then that'll solve that problem eventually. But for right now, if he wants to use the faucets that he have, that would just be my rule of thumb. Now, some people might say 10 feet. We sell to people all the time that use 15 feet. 15 feet of 3/16 ID hose, the beer must just trickle out of there.
Yeah.
I mean, I would not. We offer it as an option because people want it and people have asked for it for years. I wouldn't go that long personally, unless I had a real specific reason for doing that, like maybe a super carbonated beer or something, or maybe those people are serving soda. I've never done the math on it, but maybe 15 feet is good enough for serving soda. But anyway, that's my take.
We have a very laissez-faire, like live and let live approach to the cut. Like, because we've learned in our years, all of us in our years of this industry or any retail experience, that people want what they want, and like if we didn't offer it, they would go get it somewhere anyway. Because there are people. Tube length or hose length is one of the most discussed topics I've seen from my old days on Homebrew Talk all the time, or to now on Reddit, where everyone has an opinion. And I'll tell you what, everyone's opinion is right, I've learned. Because and it also, though, it's anecdotal, right? Because there are people, Todd, who genuinely use that 14, 15 feet and it gives them the result they want. And so to them, their perspective is that's all you need, man. 14 feet. That's what you need. It's perfect. Where other people...
Well, yeah, and maybe they're serving a stout beer,
right?
And they want to serve it at 50 degrees. I mean, we don't know what they're doing. We don't know why they're ordering 15 feet.
Exactly.
Yeah, I know. When we went to draft school, there was all kinds of charts and volumes and temperatures, and it's kind of a deep rabbit hole to go down. But I would say this: every system is just a little bit different. And I know one cool thing that they showed us when we were at the draft school was look at your clear hose right at the coupler and open and close, pop open and pop close the faucet and look for bubbles coming out of the coupler. He said that, and I can't remember the guy's name, but he said if you get bubbles, it's still not in balance. So we had to add restriction to the end until we didn't get the bubbles. So
interesting.
That was really cool visual way of getting past all the charts and the math and all that. He said a lot of times that's what the draft technicians, that's what they go by when they install.
Lord knows if I can get around math, I'm going to get around math. Right, Todd? Every time.
Yeah, I think on a future episode, we're going to have you explain the math behind this, Josh.
Behind anything. That'll be our July live Q&A for Patreon members. Will be just Todd reading random math problems to me. And if you give me like a math problem on paper, I could probably do it. But it's when we start getting into word problems. That's my issue. Like Johnny had 50 apples and then he multiplied it by 30 bananas. So how many jackfruit do you have? That's right.
And restriction could be a word problem. Yeah, you're going to be like,
good.
You're going to be like, I did the math. It's 27 feet. You need 27 feet of 3/16 hose. Yeah.
That'll be my next video series contribution for our YouTube channel. Will be Josh doing tubing math.
Now, listen, I will be the first to say that math is not my best subject. So I'm good at practical math, but not abstract math.
And also, not to sound like a lazy cop-out, even though I admit I'm lazy frequently. That's why I love like either inline flow control or the flow control at the point of dispense solution, because it also takes the math away and it gives like, look, my dad and I as kegerators have, you guys helped us configure them with the tubing and all that, but there are so many variables any given time that, temperature is the main one, or how carbonated was the keg, or
how full the keg
is, where there are times with our V3S faucets, they're beautiful and nice, but there's sometimes where the first pour is just going to suck. and then it balances out. Where, I've been telling my dad, we can't put flow control on these towers, but when we build a keezer, we can. And that way, your first pour, you could, if it starts the foam, you adjust. And then your first pour may be very slow, but at least you don't waste. I hate wasting beer. Sometimes, I mean, when that really bad Kolsch was on tap, it was okay to waste the first pour of that. but like,
well, I can say this: I got to sit at a bar, a tap room that was using our V10s, and I was fascinated by. There was 4 people serving beer, and every single one of them was pouring perfect draft beer, and they were using the compensators. And Todd, you know how rare that is.
It is. We see bad stuff sometimes.
It was amazing.
Was it the owner doing it of that bar, or was it staff?
He was using. You could tell he trained all his help the same way, because they were not pouring foam. They weren't.
One of the best things ever is watching James show a German in a German bar how to pour beer correctly with a German faucet. It cracks me up.
That's the best.
He's done it more than once. Oh, real quick before I forget though, Mark, one other option that we didn't talk about is the inline flow control on your situation. You have the faucets, you have the shanks. That's a perfect place to use inline flow control. So that would be another option for you. You could have the shorter lines, you could have the flow control. You still get to use the faucets and the shanks and everything that you already have. And
they're considerably more affordable. they are in every budget. I have 2. Actually, technically, because I bought that one. What was that contraption called? My New Friend. Remember, I bought that one off of you, and we've never used it, but I didn't realize it had 3 built-in inline flow controls into it. So I've got 5 inline flow controls. I
remember that.
It's at my pop's place. I was like, when he hosts all the time, it'll be the perfect way to have beer out there. No, everyone goes inside for their beer. They don't want beer out. Like, they don't mind walking the 30 extra feet to go inside the air conditioning to pour their beer. But I did take those inline flow controls. They might actually be on that tower still. But anyway, inline flow control is my favorite invention for my current situation. That reminds me, maybe I should just tell my dad we should install that on his kegerators until we build the keezer. Because we have 5. Sure. We only have 4 taps. Look at me solving world problems right now. Golly, this show.
Good job.
I did the math wrong, but now I feel even more dumb that we've had those inline flow controls for so long and have not used them. That's for shame, for sure. But yes, Mark, thank you so much for submitting your question. Again, if you guys submit your question and we take it on the air, we give you a $25 gift card to kegconnection.com. Check your inbox, Mr. Mark. Guys, that's all I've got for today's show. I really appreciate y'all's time doing it. James, I know more power that it's you doing inventory and not me up here in Austin, Texas. And Todd,
not a fun thing to do.
And Todd, you look like you're there at the office.
I tell you, I am at the office. I can't tell you, James, how thankful I am that you're doing the inventory and Josh isn't. So thank you, James.
Y'all have seen my math.
You're welcome.
Listen, I have to keep the bar of expectations so low, or he'll expect me to do things like inventory. It'd be hey, nothing though. I have to throw Josh, the bookkeeper, Josh Brown, doesn't listen to the show, but it's still funny to me. Nothing will top Josh Brown and the kegerator story, where how many kegerators did he tell you, Todd, that he counted?
Oh, he was like, well, we have. I was like, what is this number in inventory? Like $100 and something $1,000. He's like, kegerators, and it says it right there. And I go, we have 120 kegerators, and he goes, yeah, I counted everything correctly. Of course, I was like, where are they? Because you can only fit 60 in a 40-foot shipping container. And he thought about it for a second. He's like, well, maybe I didn't count those right.
You think?
That's my favorite story. Trying to tell Todd we have 120 kegerators. Like, okay, Josh, where are they? It's not a big warehouse, man. Not that big. You can't hide that many.
No, the one we had then was very small. Remember, it was 40 by 40. So 150 kegerators wouldn't have fit inside the entire warehouse. Well, that's assuming it's 8 foot tall, like a container, but you know what I mean.
No, I was about to correct your math. No, I wasn't, because I don't know the math. But anyways, thank you guys so much for doing the show with me. I appreciate it. I will talk to y'all soon.
Thanks.
But yeah,
And that will do it for this episode of the Homebrew Happy Hour. If you have a question you'd like us to discuss on a future episode, go to homebrewhappyhour.com and click on that submit a question link at the top of the page. Or now you can call or text them in by using 325-305-6107. Thank you to our show sponsor, homebrewsupply.com, for supporting us and the homebrewing community. Go to homebrewsupply.com right now, use our promo code HHH, and you'll get an additional 5% off your order. Details can be found at homebrewsupply.com. On behalf of Todd Burns, James Carlson, and the Pearl Media Network, I'm Joshua Stubing. Thank you for listening.